The 3:30 p.m. meeting of the Bakersfield City Council is now in session.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 3:30 regular City Council meeting of June 14th, 2023. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gonzalez. Councilmember Arias. Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
I am here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
Councilmember Gray. Here. And Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you. In keeping with Council's resolution, the public statements portion is now divided into two periods. There's a period for items listed on the meeting agenda and items not on the meeting agenda. Statements for items listed on this afternoon's agenda are given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total per agenda item. Statements regarding items not listed on the agenda are also given a 2-minute time limit, 20 minutes total. If you have written comments that are longer than your verbal statement, please give them to the clerk, who will give copies to the council. If you're here to make a public statement, please fill out a public speaker card and give your completed card to the city clerk. We ask that you mark whether you're here to speak on an item listed on this afternoon's agenda or in a matter not on the agenda. Speakers who do not identify a specific agenda item will be presumed speakers for the non-agenda portion. Those speakers will be called during the non-agenda portion of the meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any public speakers regarding items listed on this afternoon's agenda?
Mayor Go, we have not received public speaker cards for items listed on tonight's agenda or on non-agenda items.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Reports item 3A, report to council regarding the Regional Public Safety Communication Network.
Thank you. Mr. Clegg.
Thank you, Mayor Go, and Mayor and Council. We'll have a report on this item this afternoon. I'll be walking us through several of the slides. We also have Gregory Pronovost, our Technology Services Director, who's here with us. We also have Rajit Javer from Federal Engineering, who is our independent third-party consultant on this project. We also have representatives from the review committee, both from the county and from the city, who reviewed the request for proposals on this project, as well as representatives from Motorola. So just setting context, going back all the way to 2015, if you can believe it, we recognized that we had a need, that our components were failing, very aged, did not have manufacturer support. We were limping along with our system, and frankly, we have been since then with some purchases in the interim to help us keep going. But we knew we had a failing system, as well as we didn't have the ability for some of our radios to receive communication in certain locations, particularly large buildings and even sections of the city, and the need to move from analog to digital. So we had a recognition that the county was in the same situation, and that there was an opportunity for the city and the county to pool resources, build a joint system. Not only is there cost savings, but also important interoperability between city and the county, give us more features, options, and increase our knowledge pool. But despite working together, recognized also that we did not have the expertise to the level that some others did, and so we contracted early with Federal Engineering to help us review our existing systems, to help us prepare the request for qualifications, the request for proposal, and consult on all aspects of this from a technical expertise perspective. It's important to note that really in this space globally, there are a limited number of firms that provide this service, and really in the United States, 3 principal firms that provide this service. And so it's a fairly, again, technical area, but also leads to being a fairly competitive market between those 3 principal bidders on these types of projects. In the years 2016 through 2019, a lot of research, a lot of discussion, site visits, demonstrations actually from all of the vendors. We hadn't entered a procurement yet, so we were authorized under our procurement policies to have some early demonstrations just to understand what some of the options and possibilities were. and spent a lot of time gaining a comprehensive understanding of what's available, what worked, and what really didn't. And so this is not a short or brief process. This has been a long time in coming. Then we get to the stage where we were at the request for qualifications. We wanted to have a two-step process where we could identify the firms that could meet our minimum standards. And so that was issued in September of 2019. Again, we had a 6-member panel from our side, on the city side, our chief of fire, Chief Rando, Captain Jeremy Grimes, and Greg Pronovost from Technology Services were on this review committee and continued through that review committee up till this point as well as our representatives. So with the request for qualifications, we did ask for individuals to demonstrate their ability and expertise. We actually had this in 2 separate phases. We'll recognize that there were some slowdowns in 2020 because of the pandemic. We had some timelines that we'd originally established that we had to push back a little bit and make some adjustments to make it all work. But we did complete the request for qualifications phase, and actually all 3 vendors that I noted on the previous slide were recognized as meeting the minimum qualifications of the request for qualifications, that first step in the process. At this point, I'm going to ask Greg Pronovost to come up and cover the next few slides that walk through the RFP itself and the scoring process.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg. Excuse me. Okay, so then we went into the RFP portion of it. We had multiple extension deadlines requested by the respondents. We spent many, many months reviewing the responses by Motorola as well as L3 Harris. The 2 respondents, JVC Kenwood, decided that they would not be submitting response to our RFP. We found that the responses were not meeting our coverage requirements and some of the asks within the RFP itself. So we had meetings with both Motorola and L3 Harris and expressed that concern, and then gave them a second opportunity to present a best and final offer to meet the requirements as we asked for them. That BAFO, or best BAFO, was due in January 21st of 2022. The committee followed the same procedures that we did with the RFP. We spent a good 6 months reviewing the BAFO and going through and, of course, consulting with federal engineering as we have throughout the entire process. By June of 2022, the committee conducted the scoring of the respondents' final offers and made our recommendation. Before you is the summary of the overall scores. Each rater independently scored each of the respondents. Unilaterally, all raters scored Motorola higher in their response. You can see the totals there, 388 to 508, with no dissension among members. And that brought us to our contract negotiations beginning of September 2022. Pre-contract negotiations with Motorola. One of the things that we wanted to make sure is that we were getting all costs up front. So we worked very closely with Motorola on providing those costs and ensuring that we've got the best system design moving forward, including identifying any areas that needed to be addressed. So it took some time. One of the areas that we focused on was the expanded extended warranty. We got that beyond the 3 years traditionally offered for such a system, expanded out to 8 years up front for an additional cost. And that extended warranty, as we reach that 8 years, can be renegotiated with Motorola based off of what's available at the time. The city's timeframe and costs, the entire system is going to take approximately 8 years to implement. The city's metro cell will be completed within the first 2 years of that. The city's cost is expected not to exceed $27 million for our portion of the system. And you can see a breakout before you on that. And this is the proposed payment structure. The first few years there also include the $5.5 million in contingency costs, which are things that are unknown yet. After assessment of our sites, there may be some remediation that needs to be done, maybe replacement of equipment, towers, things of that nature. And that's why we've got that $5.5 million as a contingency. And with that, I'll turn it back to Mr. Clegg.
Just summarizing the main points that we've covered in this presentation is that, clearly the need for our new system is no longer just urgent, but it's nearly imminent. We do believe that the partnership with the county continues to provide significant benefits to both the city and the county. I would note, this is not a surprise to mayor and council. We've received some of the comments from one of the vendors with questions about the process. And we have learned some lessons through the procurement process, but we point to the rigorous process. As you saw, it was a lengthy process, multiple steps, that we offered each of the vendors opportunities to clarify their best and final offer. We had question and answer with all of the vendors as well. And this rigorous process that has taken the last couple of years, also validated by the feedback and review of our independent third-party consultant, and had a very clear outcome from the scoring. It's not ideal to have some of those concerns, complaints, but our review committee is aligned that this is our best outcome and recommendation for moving forward. You'll probably see in your packet a final slide there that has a recommendation. We're actually recommending only at this workshop a receive and file. We're not actually recommending adoption of the contract. That will be at our 5:15 work session tonight. But we are open for questions now from Mayor and Council on this topic. Again, we have representatives from Federal Engineering, from Motorola, the city, as well as City Attorney's Office to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg. Thank you, Mr. Pronovost. Are there any comments from Council? Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor. Could we go back a couple slides to where, wait, right, that one, no, that's fine. So that is 5 of our 8 years of warranty, correct? Or is it 3 years just getting the radios and systems set up?
Mayor, Councilmember, that is the full 8 years of warranty. The first 3 years are included in the system price. The additional years are years, extended warranty years 1 through 5, giving us a total of 8 years of warranty service.
So it's basically $1.5 million a year for the warranty?
The extended warranty it came out to be, I'm trying to remember exactly, I don't have the price in
It's $8
front of me.
million.
But yes, just about maybe $900,000 for 5 years. And that covers pretty much everything within the system. So the equipment, the radios, the support, the service, the software, which was actually a discounted price. Normally that service would have cost a few million more.
And when we get the system up and running, because it's been 8 years since we've been working on this, is this the best technology that we can find when it's installed?
Correct. This is the latest technology. We're moving, and I will try not to get too technical. We're moving from an analog system to a digital system. So it is, in fact, it's what's known as P2, digital system. We're also moving from the analog system to a trunk system. So there's many, many benefits that are coming with the essentially multiple generations of improvements from our existing radio system to what we're going to. The radios themselves are, you can think of them as radios that also act as computers. There's additional digital feature sets that come with these radios now. Not to go down the list, but GPS functionality, text messaging if we wanted it, a number of other features. Also, moving from our existing system to the new system will provide us better coverage throughout the city, as well as the additional coverage area of Kern County, and more importantly, better coverage in buildings. Currently, if you go into a medium-sized building with your portable radio on your hip, about halfway through the building, you will lose coverage. With this new system as it's designed, with the latest technology, you'll be able to go into that building, go to the center of that building, and still have communications. Larger buildings, we still might have some issues, but again, it's much better coverage, much better technology than our existing system.
Okay. And how long is this technology going to be relevant?
Excuse me?
How long is this system going to provide what we need
We anticipate 15 to 20 years.
before we go out to eBay?
Correct.
Okay, that's it for me for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Weir. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Clegg, so we engaged a third-party consultant for this process when we engaged the county, correct?
Correct.
And federal engineering is that consultant.
Correct.
And they're here today.
Indeed.
Okay, Mayor, may I ask the
Sure.
consultants from federal to please take the podium.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Rajit Javer. I'm a Director of Operations with Federal Engineering.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your time and being here this afternoon. Just a few questions. Can you just more broadly for the council and for the community, just describe your role in this whole process?
Sure. Would you like me to start right from when we got engaged back in 2016,
Please do.
2017? Okay, absolutely. Can you hear me okay? So back when we first got engaged by the city of Bakersfield and Kern County, we were asked to do a needs assessment, which really entailed talking with stakeholders, that be all the different public safety departments, and understanding what their needs were. We then documented that and put that report together. Based on what their needs were, a lot of them, as was just mentioned, was coverage related and more features and functionality. We then went ahead and put a conceptual design report together. And that conceptual design basically talked about these technology changes of going from analog to digital, conventional to trunked. Essentially that created the framework for what then ensued with the RFP process. So once we'd completed that conceptual design, we were then also continued to be retained by the county and the city to put that RFQ together. We supported the entire process with vendor question and answers, supported any types of clarification that we could address that the city members of the city team or the county team had. Once those three companies were qualified through the RFQ process, we put together the RFP. Of course, it was vetted by members, again, of the city as well as the county, but we were the primary author of that request for proposal. And then we supported that entire process, right from the vendor question and answers on that, helping to issue additional addendums as certain aspects and questions came out that needed to be addressed. We then reviewed the two proposals that were submitted by the two vendors. We did not engage and never do in any scoring or type of recommendation, but what we did do is objectively analyze the proposals and provide our pros and cons for each of the proposals with respect to the RFP requirements, how they were positive, negative in each of the different functional areas. So we provided that back to the evaluation committee team, which was made up of 3 members from the city and 3 from the county. And then they went through their evaluation process to score, and then eventually Motorola Solutions was selected. So that was our role as the, I guess, subject matter experts through the process.
I appreciate that. Federal Engineering, as I understand, has over 40 years of experience in planning, design, and implementation of public safety radio communication systems. In this process, I'm sure you do this all over the country.
Yes.
In this process, did anything stand out that was extraordinary or cause some question in the process?
In the process, nothing that was extraordinary aside from the time it's taken. And again, there's factors for that. It's not just, COVID was a factor and so forth, but the overall process has been more drawn out than what we typically see. Part of that's, of course, the size and scope of this project. It is one of the larger types of radio system deployments that we've been involved with. We've seen some statewide systems as well, and those can also take a fair bit of time. But I would say, I think part of that also was just making sure that everything was done as per the process. And again, as was mentioned, some of those initial responses to the RFP were not to the level of, compliance that we were looking for. So every time he needed clarifications from the vendors, it did take further time. But all of that is to get to a point where it's a good solution for the city and the county. So I think time was probably the only thing that was probably on the side of longer than normal as we went through this process.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Welcome.
all your responses. I would just like to make a comment, if I may. We started this conversation years ago, and I believe pre-Measure N, we estimated this radio system was around $17 million. And so now we're $10 million above that. And so time is of the essence. Of course, we need these new radios. We need this system for our first responders and for public safety, but certainly there's a budgetary concern as well. And I think the sooner we can implement this, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, actually, I'm glad Councilmember Weir mentioned warranties, because something occurred to me as a result of that. I've been through 2 major company. This is like a computer conversion is what it is. It's the nightmare of your life. It's multiple years. When you go through it, they will have people working full-time on this, just maintaining the system, because it takes an expertise the way you can't really fix your iPhone because you don't have the expertise. Whoever's hired has that expertise, and they're going to be working constantly to maintain the system. The system, you get that update from on your iPhone, like every week there's an update. They're fixing the system every single week. That's how much intense work it takes to keep these things operating. And this is a pretty critical role we're doing in the city. So I just want to remind people, this is, you get what you pay for, and you want a great warranty. So my question is, have we had attorneys look at the warranty language? And I mean an attorney who looks at warranty language and specializes in this, and rip through it before we sign, because this warranty is only as good as whatever weasel words are in that contract. And it was, hey, if I'm the vendor, I'm going to write it in my favor, okay? If we didn't at least read it and make comment and potential changes in some of the words, just like when you buy and sell real estate, they give you a contract, you mark it all up, you send it back. Maybe it's perfect, but I want to know we didn't skip that step before we sign anything, because this goes on for decades. And if the warranty isn't good, they say, well, that really, like your car, well, that one really isn't covered. When you go, no, you didn't know it, but that part really isn't covered. That'll be some extra money, please. And I haven't read the warranty, and our technical people aren't lawyers, so they probably haven't read the detailed language. It's maybe a multiple-page warranty. So I request that we have someone, probably our legal department, together with our IT department, and maybe an outside attorney, scrutinize the warranty and come back and say, yeah, that is solid and you can rely on it for the next, whether 15 or 20 years, because we just have to protect ourselves. So that's Mr. Clegg, I would ask that we do that part of our due diligence before we sign on the dotted line. Thank you.
Madam City Attorney or team, would anybody like to have a comment at this point? Ms. Zambrano.
Hi, good afternoon. I'll do my best to provide an initial response. So I can tell you that the City Attorney's Office has been heavily involved, as well as County Council. I'm not going to pretend that I spend all day looking at technical warranties for software subscriptions, but it has been read multiple times, and it was a collaborative effort with attorneys, but also the expertise of federal engineering and our TS director and others that are involved who know both the substantive aspect of the warranties as well as the legal language of the warranties. In the contract that you will see, which is admittedly very long, but the main body of the contract, the warranties really differ based off what you're talking about because this project is so comprehensive. So there are different warranties, for example, if we're talking about service versus equipment versus software. Sure. So whatever clarification that is to you, there is different types of warranties and they have been looked at, in putting together this contract.
Okay, well, I'm not saying they haven't. I'm just saying it's up to you and our city manager that we really did do this extremely carefully and with collaboration with other people who've been through this, so we don't make a mistake. When we used to do big land deals, I would spend hours reading them and going through everything, but that didn't mean I didn't give it to at least 2 other attorneys to do exactly the same thing, and they always found things I didn't. So just as the city, all we can do is try to make sure we do this right. We don't have the expertise up here, so let's just be sure we're super careful because people are going to live with this for, is it 15 years?
15 to 20. Oh, 8.
More? 8 years on the warranty. There's 8 years of warranties?
But a 15 to 20 year life cycle. So
Okay.
we'll take another look.
Okay, well.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman. Thank you, Ms. Zambrano. Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to recognize the experts who have worked so long on this and so diligently. I think our experts said it the best. I think our staff has said it. I think we've heard from our first responders and law enforcement who are here with us today, and like to recognize you all as well. Time really is of the essence on this one. And I think first, it's worth commending that this effort is collaborative between the county and the city of Bakersfield. I think this is a precedent in terms of shared services in improving the quality of life and safety for the residents that we share within the city and within the county. I can't tell you how many calls I receive about, when we're talking about response times, when we're talking about all of these things, this technology plays into that. And God forbid the situation when our first responders need more backup, need more assistance, in those unfortunate situations, and then they don't have the resources that they need or the technology that they need to have support. So I can't help but feel that time really is of the essence, and our experts have done their due diligence, and it is on us to make sure we see it through. I mean, our county elected officials yesterday had similar conversations and set the precedent for us as well. And again, I just want to emphasize that as the folks from federal engineering have shared, what made this unique and extraordinary with our city was not only the size, of course, which is, we all know that the size of our county and city is vast, but also the time that it's taken. And to respect our tax-paying residents and to respect our first responders and law enforcement, as well as the experts who have done this work for so long, I wanted to share my comments and my sentiment and how I feel that, this is the time to make sure we do this now. And clearly we are getting it right, and there will always be time to improve, but we need to take this step forward and meet our counterparts at the county and staff who have really poured so much time into this. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaur. Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wondered if federal engineering, if you could come back up and maybe respond to the warranty comments.
So yes, federal engineering did take a look, as we did extensively look at all the documentation in the contract. We are not lawyers, as you know, but looking at the language, having seen a number of warranties from all the various vendors, but primarily in this case, obviously, Motorola Solutions, it was in line with what our expectations would be. So there was nothing that we saw that was brought pause. Again, legalese portion aside, definitely from a technical nature, it covered all the key aspects. I think as was brought up, there's different warranties for different types of items. Those were all consistent with what we have seen and is in line with kind of what we expected.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. I don't see any other requests to speak. Mr. Clegg, would you like to offer any closing comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Again, just to summarize, this item is on our consent agenda this evening, but given the magnitude and the scope, we wanted to have this workshop this afternoon. We're just asking for a motion to receive and file this information today, but the actual contract is up for vote later tonight. I would note the budget was mentioned. We had set aside significant funds for this project over the last 3 years of the Public Safety Vital Services tax measure. And it's still up on the screen, the main budget here. The remediation line there, which is the biggest sort of cost driver outside of what we anticipated, years ago early on in the project. There are tower sites that need to be built, and we don't know the details of the costs for some of those, and so that is a contingent number. We hope that it's less than that, but we want to plan prudently that it could be as much as that. And so I'm not recommending that we appropriate the full $27 million, with the action tonight. We've got $20 million set aside in the bank, today, and that will get us through, clearly the majority of the years on this next slide. As we get clarity on how much those site remediation costs are, we'll come forward in future budget cycles to complete the funding there, but I'm confident we'll be in a good position with one-time dollars to complete the project. And again, because of the Public Safety Vital Services tax, it's possible, and because of the prudence of council in setting those funds aside early in the revenues from that tax to make sure we get big game-changing projects done.
Thank you, Mr. Clegg. Councilmember Freeman.
One final comment, since if this will be on a consent calendar, and if I support this, can I have your assurance that you won't sign this until you are comfortable that the warranties are thorough, solid, and what they ought to be?
Yes, Councilmember.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, motion to receive and file.
You have a motion? Please cast your votes.
Motion is unanimously approved.
Thank you. We have no further items on this agenda, so we stand adjourned at 4:04.